I'm a farmer, and there's a story that happened on my land that a lot of people never believed. For a long time, folks around here called Old Duke the curse of the county. They said that animal brought nothing but bad luck, that he was good for nothing, just a dead weight dragging everything down. But everything changed the day the great drought arrived, and it was exactly in that moment that I witnessed something no one could have ever imagined. But before I tell you what really happened that day, I want to ask you one thing. When you're done listening to this story, drop a comment down below telling me what you thought and give it a score from 0 to 10. And tell me what town you're watching from, because I truly want to get to know the people who follow my stories. And if you enjoy this kind of story, subscribe to the channel to support my work. I'm counting on you. There are mornings when the silence weighs heavier than life itself. That's how it was on that April dawn, when the rooster didn't crow and the creek that used to run through Millhaven's community farmland simply ceased to exist. It wasn't low water, it wasn't just a trickle. It was cracked earth, bare rock, an open wound in the land I had known since I was a girl. I woke up to Duke stomping restlessly at the fence, lowing in a way I had never heard before. He's an old steer, patchy-coated, one eye gone cloudy, his hide worn thin by the years. The whole community calls me a witch because of him. They say Duke brings misfortune, that he's a bad omen. I never paid any mind to what people say. I've lived alone out here on the edge of the rural settlement for so long that I've nearly forgotten what real human company feels like. But that morning, watching Duke's agitation and the sky that looked like hot iron, I felt deep in my bones that something terrible was coming. And I wasn't wrong. The drought settled in with the cruelty of something that has no hurry. The wells gave out one by one, like candles going dark in an empty church. Gerald, the wealthiest rancher in the county, owner of the only shared cisterns that remained, showed up in the town square announcing he was going to ration the water. I was there when he said my name out loud, in front of everyone. He declared that Duke and I were banned from using the communal tank. His excuse was that the steer was contaminating the water with bad energy. But I knew what Gerald really wanted. He was afraid I knew things about the old land boundaries, about property lines he wanted erased so he could buy out every last soul around. I had lived on this land before any of those paper men ever showed up. Tyler and Danny, two young hands who worked for Gerald, came to deliver the official order. Tyler looked at me for just a second longer than necessary. There was doubt in that look, but they left without saying a word. I was left without water. Duke, too. I started searching in puddles, in old cisterns, in whatever scraps were left. The whole community avoided me like I was carrying disease. Women I had helped through childbirth crossed the street to keep from passing near me. Men I had healed with herb teas spat on the ground when I walked by. But I was already used to the loneliness. What truly hurt was watching Duke suffer with thirst, his tongue cracked, his eyes sunken. It was Helen, the teacher at the rural school, who came to tell me what was really going on. She was the only person who still treated me with respect. She said Gerald had been making nighttime visits toward the dry creek bed, always accompanied by a man from the city named Victor. I asked what she thought they were after. Helen shook her head and said she didn't know, but that it wasn't anything good. That same night I watched Duke do something strange. He headed down alone toward the old brushland, passing through the broken fence nobody had ever fixed. I waited for him to come back. When he did, hours later, his hooves were wet. Truly wet. I touched the water with the tip of my finger. It was clean, cool water. My heart beat faster. Duke knew something I didn't, but I kept it secret. In those days, a secret was the only thing that still belonged to me. The tension in the community grew like a fever. Without enough water, families started fighting among themselves. Gerald, with that cold shrewdness that powerful men carry, began spreading the word that the drought had gotten worse after Duke set foot on the sacred ground near the creek. Patty, the wife of one of the farmers, gathered a group of women and came to my house demanding that I leave with the steer. The words were hard, words that cut deeper than a knife. I didn't answer. I just looked at each one of them, trying to remember if we had ever been friends. Later I found Sandra, one of the women from the group, waiting for me behind the cattle shed. She was crying. She said she didn't know what to believe anymore, that Gerald seemed so sure of everything, but that seeing me broken like that made her chest ache. I told her it was all right, that I understood. But something shifted inside me. I realized there were still people who doubted, still people with heart. Gerald must have noticed I hadn't left because he sent Victor and Carl to keep watch on me. I could see the two of them in the distance, hiding behind trees, writing down everything I did. I decided then to do what I had been afraid to do. On a night with a low moon, I followed Duke to where he was going. The path was rocky, narrow, half hidden between thick brush. Duke walked with confidence, as if he knew every single step of that trail. We walked for nearly an hour until he stopped at a hollow hidden between two low ridges. And there it was, a small spring, bubbling up clean and cool in the middle of the dry earth. I knelt down and touched the water. I cried without making a sound, hand pressed over my mouth to hold back the cry that had been trapped in my chest for weeks. But before I could think about what to do next, I heard the crack of a branch. Carl was there, crouched behind a rock. He saw me, he saw the spring, and he ran. My blood went cold. I knew I had only a few hours before Gerald showed up with forged papers claiming that land was his. I did something I had never done in my life. I asked for help. I ran to Helen's house in the middle of the night. I knocked on the door until she opened it. I told her everything. She held me tight and said she would help me, that she wasn't going to let Gerald steal the one thing that could save the community. The next day, Gerald showed up with Victor and two men from the county office. They brought papers claiming the spring area belonged to his ranch through adverse possession. I tried to speak, but I was cut off. Rose, the county health worker who was there, tried to defend me and was threatened with losing her contract with the county. That's when Tyler stepped forward. He was carrying an old paper, yellowed with age. It was a land boundary map kept by his grandfather. The map showed that land had never belonged to Gerald, never belonged to anyone. It was old communal land recorded in the names of the founding families, and my family was on it. Gerald turned red with rage. Humiliated in front of everyone, he acted on impulse. He ordered his men to surround the spring and drive Duke away from it. When I arrived, I found my steer lying on the ground, a gash on his side, breathing hard. I knelt in the cracked earth beside him and couldn't say a word. I just cradled his head in my lap and let the tears fall. The people standing there watched. They saw an old woman alone holding a wounded steer. They saw the despair. Some of them turned away. Others stood frozen, not knowing what to do. Helen didn't waste a moment. With Tyler's map, she contacted a lawyer from the city named Nathan, young and idealistic, who already knew about Gerald's shady dealings in other counties. Gerald was served notice. But with the influence he had, he walked free within hours. I saw him laughing in the town square, saying some crazy old woman wasn't going to take anything from him. The community lost hope. I nearly did too. But Helen had done one more thing. Weeks earlier, without telling me, she had reached out to a regional journalist named Laura, and Laura published the story. Photos of the spring, the old map, my testimony. The report spread across the entire region. Gerald lost his political backing overnight. The papers were nullified. The spring was declared community property. On the last day of that week, the whole community walked in silence to the hollow. Duke, already recovered, led the way, as he always had. The people who had called me a witch arrived without words, only with open hands asking for water. I served everyone. I asked for no apologies. I asked for nothing. Months later, I saw Gerald begging for food on the side of the road. No land, no allies, no respect. Nobody stopped to help. Or they pretended not to see. The community now gathers around the spring that Duke found. They look after me as if I had always been the heart of that place. Because I was. Nobody just wanted to see it. There are mornings when the silence weighs heavy, but there are mornings when it heals. And when I look at Duke grazing peacefully, the sun warming his old back, I know we found more than water. We found what the drought almost took away: dignity, justice, and the reminder that no man alone is greater than the land he stands on. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life a little happier. Comment what you thought of my story, give it a score from 0 to 10, and thank you so much.